Excellencies, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to the press conference following the culmination of the 22nd APEC Small and Medium Enterprises Ministerial Meeting. We are proud to announce that we have made tremendous progress over the past 5 days in pushing for the initiatives of micro, small, and medium enterprises or MSMEs in the Asia-Pacific region. We are very glad indeed to note that all our discussions have contributed to our efforts in removing trade barriers to facilitate MSME entry to markets, advancing modernization in standards and conformance of MSMEs, and promoting inclusive growth through sustainable and resilient MSMEs. The highly valuable insights gained from all the activities we had the past few days are critical to the formulation of the APEC Iloilo initiative, which is envisioned to champion inclusive development for MSMEs. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor to invite the chair of the 22nd APEC SME Ministerial Meeting, Philippine Department of Trade and Industry Undersecretary Honorable Zenaida Quizon Maglaya, who will deliver the press statement. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome the Honorable Undersecretary Maglaya.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, members of the press. We, the APEC ministers and representatives responsible for small and medium enterprises, just concluded the 22nd APEC SME Ministerial Meeting. We appreciate the active participation of micro, small, and medium enterprises from across the APEC region at the meetings held on 21 to 24 September. Notably, the views and contribution of our MSMEs, the women and young entrepreneurs, business and government leaders, supply chain experts, finance specialists, and the academe greatly shaped the APEC's agenda. It is indeed a welcome development that emphasis is given this year on the strengthening of micro, small, and medium enterprises' participation in regional and global markets as one of the priorities under APEC 2015's theme, Building Inclusive Economies, Building a Better World. This brought into focus the challenges faced by MSMEs and possible measures to address this. Collectively, the ministers reaffirmed the importance of addressing trade and investment barriers and implementing trade facilitation measures as underscored in the Boracay Action Agenda in order to provide a better business environment for our micro, small, and medium enterprises. Also, we endorse the efforts of the SME Working Group to address challenges related to non-tariff measures, information and regulatory concerns, as well as supply chain financing and expect further work in conjunction with relevant fora to eliminate barriers, reduce trade-related costs, and facilitate trading of MSMEs globally. And as the need arises to further strengthen MSMEs or MSMEs participation in local supply chain and global value chains, we acknowledge that our micro, small, and medium enterprises' participation in international markets is enhanced when they leverage on the benefits of e-commerce. Moreover, we call on greater efforts to promote the SME resilience against unexpected events, disasters, and financial crises, recognizing the role of public finance rather than the rescue of financial institutions. Faced with the increasing demand on mobile internet business opportunities and the growing concern on online security, we acknowledge that digital resilience is a crucial issue in business continuity planning. We therefore encourage all members' economies to work together, building a secure and fully developed digital economy as part of the business continuity planning, guided by the objectives of limiting disruptions to global supply chains and safeguarding trade and investments for inclusive growth. With all the aforementioned breakthroughs, plans, and directions, we have adopted the APEC Iloilo initiative of growing global MSMEs for inclusive development as a guiding framework in integrating MSMEs in international trade and the global value chains. We will work to implement the initiatives under this framework to maximize the benefit of cooperation. We look forward to our next meeting in Peru for the APEC SME Ministerial Meeting and related activities in September 2016. we agreed to present the SME Ministerial Statement as a contribution to the APEC Economic Leaders Meeting in November in Manila, Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Undersecretary Maglaya. We now open the floor to questions from our friends from the media, but before doing so, let me set some ground rules. Kindly raise your hand and wait to be acknowledged, and please state your name and your affiliation. In the interest of time and to give everyone a chance to be heard, you will be allowed to ask only one question and, if necessary, one follow-up question at a time. Please be advised to restrict your queries to the topic at hand. We will conclude the question and answer forum at 6 o'clock in the evening. May we have the first question, please?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Amy Remo from Philippine Daily Inquirer. Would like to ask maybe about the focus of the Iloilo initiative. I understand that there is greater focus being given now on e-commerce and leveraging the digital economy. Can you expound more on this, please? Thank you.
Well, we see e-commerce as a very vital tool as we look at ICT and the digital economy as a very important platform for marketing for our micro, small, and medium enterprises. So this is one of the inclusion of one of the initiatives that we see in our agreed Iloilo initiative. And earlier this afternoon, we had several sharing of the extent of initiatives and innovations in the area of ICT and digital economy. And we hope to pursue that in all other economies as we learn from a lot of initiatives and innovations from the other countries.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Undersecretary Maglayan. The next question, please.
Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Christian Osada from Bombo Radio, Philippines. This question is addressed to Yusek Maglaya. Ma'am, how can you help the local and aspiring businessman here in the region when they lack capital but they have available resources like raw products, and of course those who lack internet, knowing that we promote e-commerce?
Well, first of all, for a micro, small, and medium enterprise, he has to look at what are the available resources, what are the strengths in a particular area. Of course, e-commerce is very important, but the infrastructure facilities should be in place. With regards to financing, this is one area that we're looking at in terms of innovation as well, on what would really be the best for our micro and small entrepreneurs for financing. So there has been sessions on this, on how to look into inclusive financing, and this will continue. Find ways and means to make financing not only available but accessible as well.
Addition, ma'am. Knowing that some of our non-educated person thought that APEC Summit is just for big-time businessmen, how can we correct this perception?
We always go back to the theme of the APEC, which is building inclusive economies and building a better world. And when we talk inclusivity, we're really talking of bringing in not just the big, but also the micro and the small.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Undersecretary Maglaya. Do we have anyone else who would like to ask a question, please? Yes, Madam.
Good afternoon. I'm Lydia Pendon of the Manila Times. Since we have a time constraint, I would like only to ask 3 countries: Australia, People's Republic of China, and Indonesia. What good lessons have you learned from the Iloilo meetings that you are going to bring back to your country?
We'd like to ask our Head of Delegation Minister from Australia to respond to that first, please. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your question. Look, quite a number of things. We've come to this meeting keen to see the meeting progress in a number of areas, improving the operating environment for SMEs, strengthening our own relationships with regional partners in APEC on SME matters, and to work together to facilitate SME development by influencing policy settings and so forth. So we've found this very valuable, the official sessions, but also earlier this afternoon, straight after lunch, we had a very good meeting with CEOs as well, and it was, I think it was, I can only speak for Australia, but I think many of us found that very valuable because, you know, when you work in government, you're doing your very best to try to get the policy settings both nationally and regionally in which your enterprises can flourish, particularly your micro and small enterprises, and some of the tips we got there I think were exceptionally valuable.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Your Excellency from the People's Republic of China, please.
Thank you for the question. First of all, please allow me to congratulate our host, the Philippines, successfully hosting this year's ministerial meeting. And to respond to your question, as we have discussed during the ministerial meeting and this afternoon's CEO dialogue, we noticed that e-commerce has been pay much more attention for the cross-border trade for the SMEs. So we would like to take back the idea, and also if we can recall last year when we hosted a ministerial meeting in Nanjing, we have endorsed a Nanjing Declaration on promoting SME innovative development, in which we have a series of measures for e-commerce platform development. So we would like join hand with APEC member economies to push forward efforts taken by all members. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And our minister, please, from Indonesia.
Thank you for your question. Indonesia, what can we get from this meeting, especially for the exchange of the best practices among economies that we can learn how do the economies growth for the SMEs. So that experience we can learn, and then we can select which one is applicable in each economies, especially in Indonesia. As in Iloilo initiative, there are 3 pillars that we can learn from that, from other economies, and then from those best practices, experiences, then we can implement in our country, especially in Indonesia. So we are looking other experience, and then we can shortcut to implement in our countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Yes.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Mads Miraflor of Manila Bulletin. I actually have 2 questions, one for Yusek Maglaya and one for a representative from Peru. My question for Yusek Maglaya regarding the initiative. Under it, do we set a certain timetable, say in the matter of this number of years, we will achieve this for MSMEs? And for my question for our delegate from Peru, what is since as the host for next APEC Summit, what is your take on this initiative? Thank you.
All right. The specifics or the details of, like you're saying, the targets that will be set will really depend on each of the economies. This will be really subject of programs and projects that and plans that will be mapped out or worked out by the SME working group, by the APEC SME working group. So then we will see really the timelines and the specific targets that we will be setting across economies.
Representative Victor, por, para que responda a las preguntas que nos hicieron. Gracias.
Yes, on behalf of Ms. Victoria, yes, what we can say we take from here is very valuable in terms of continuing the agenda that APEC has developed for the last few years for strengthening SMEs. In this sense, issues like promoting innovation, connectivity, and finding more tools to strengthen the productive capacity of SMEs will prove to be very useful for us as incoming hosts for APEC economy. We look forward to continue on that same path, and we look forward also for the cooperation of other economies in this regard. Thanks.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. And I understand our colleague from the APEC Secretariat, Dr. Bollard, would like to respond to the question as well.
I'd just like to add to the first answer to the first question that, of course, Philippines led the development of the Boracay Action Agenda to globalise micro, medium, small enterprises, and already have put out an action plan that's got about 50 initiatives with targets and details about who's doing them. So that's available. It's quite specific.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bollard. Do we have the next question, please?
Good afternoon. I am Runji Amolo of Radyo ng Bayan, Iloilo. May we know, since we are pushing for e-commerce in this, in APEC, may we know more or less what needs to be done as far as e-commerce? Are we prepared to push for this? May we get the assessment of Undersecretary Maglaya, ma'am, please?
I think the different economies are at different levels when it comes to readiness of e-commerce, but it's all, everybody is aware and fully appreciative that it is the way to go now. It's really the platform now for not just for markets, but also for business resiliency. For SME resiliency, it's very important that we look at the digital economy, look at ICT. For the Philippines, the awareness campaign is ongoing. We continue to do work on that. We should have the infrastructure in other areas, because in the urban centers we may have that already, but we have to make sure that others are connected too. And we do have also across the APEC, we have this new project on the marketplace that we call, wherein there will be exchange of information and also even for possible market linkages, and we are going to set that up, and the Philippines is tasked to do this for APEC. So I would say that we vary. There are some economies already advanced in this area, and we're learning from them. This what's important in this gathering is the sharing of success stories, of innovations, of systems and methods to really bring up our micro, small, and medium enterprises to the level where they can really be able to compete in the global value chain. And probably some of our member economies could also share their own experiences in e-commerce.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Undersecretary Maglaya. I think Dr. Bollard would like to respond to that as well, on the perspective of the APEC Secretariat.
There's a lot going on electronic commerce. APEC knows it's a very interesting time when there's developments that we can take and use to help goods and services get across borders. And what the SME Ministerial meeting has been doing has been to focus on what is appropriate for small businesses in that, and to ensure that policy is working for small businesses in it as well. Some of it is happening through authorised economic operators, single customs windows, integrated data systems, platforms that will work right around the 21 economies, not just one economy's worth. And some of those are disruptive technologies. Some of them are ones that have been happening for some time. We've heard about O2O, offline to online today. We've heard about other ones like Internet of Things connecting up particular technologies. And in the whole services focus that Philippines has put this year, there's a lot on how to make it easier to just communicate between economies as well. There's a lot going on there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Undersecretary Maglaya and Dr. Bollard. Yes, please.
Good afternoon. I'd like to address my question to Yusek Maglaya, ma'am. I'm Jaime Gabag Jr. from the Philippine Information Agency, Region 6. What specific provisions or components have been included, particularly in the Iloilo initiative, that would take into account the interest of small businesses for them to take advantage or benefit from cross-border trading that will, so that this will keep the economies move forward?
The realization of the importance of information has really been given emphasis in the Iloilo initiative, and exchange of experiences and sharing. We know that information for MSMEs, for our micro, small, and medium enterprises, is very important. When you talk of information as far as regulations are concerned, markets, wanting to trade and really be able to facilitate the exchange of goods, information is very, very important. It's either the lack or really the better understanding and appreciation of some of these regulations. And this is part of what we see in the initiatives. And as we really stick to what we want in growing our MSMEs for inclusive development in the Iloilo initiative, we really want to make sure that they really are part of the growth, and we really look at all of them down at the level of our micro and small enterprises, and growing up and looking at inclusive growth as well.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Undersecretary Maglaya. May we have the next question, please? Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. I'm Chris Muda from Philippines News Agency. As Secretary Domingo mentioned early this morning about the APEC MSME marketplace, can you expound on that? And if I'm not mistaken, is this how you link MSMEs to large companies to participate in the global value chain? And how are you going to do that? Thank you.
All right. The MSME Marketplace is actually a program project that will bring together a lot of information and allow information exchange between and among the APEC economies. There will be, of course, the information as to regulations, as to markets, in terms also of how we can be able to implement the Boracay Action Agenda and move it forward. So it's really like a platform where we can have information as well on what are existing initiatives or innovations on programs, projects among the APEC economies. So it's really something that is a rich source of knowledge and information, so that we do not have to wait for meetings to happen, but it's something that's alive, and it's where everybody is allowed to put in all this information that can be made available to the APEC economies. We also have invited actually the ABAC to also be a contributor of information in this marketplace.
Great, thank you. May we have the next question, please? Anyone else would like to ask a question? I don't see any hands being raised. We are about to, oh, yes, please.
Good day, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bombo Ayan Gahete from Bombo Radio Philippines. I learned that one of the best practices of Indonesia in terms of promoting small or micro, small, and medium enterprises is other than giving huge financial assistance to SM entrepreneurs. One best practice of Indonesia is actually instilling entrepreneurial spirit. I'm sorry, from the grassroots level. For example, they give their education system. I think their education system is has given priority to promote to educate the young kids to be to have entrepreneurial entrepreneurial spirit from their young age. To APEC SEC and to Ma'am Maglaya, do you think it's one of the best initiatives that we can share to other APEC or members of the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation? Especially, I believe that in the Philippines, we are not actually giving so much priority, especially in the education system, in terms of promoting entrepreneurship to the young kids.
Maybe you want Indonesia first to
Yes.
share their experience?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Your Excellency from Indonesia, please.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, it is not best practice, but at least we are practicing now. We start to practice that. If you talk about the entrepreneurship, we are in Indonesia still left behind. You know, actually, someone said that entrepreneurs in one economy is good if the entrepreneurs at least 2% out of total populations. But we are in Indonesia still under 2%, so it is not good yet. So we have a lot of homework to do. Since 5 years ago, our president proclaimed every year we celebrate for the entrepreneurs. And you're right that we make a program for the young entrepreneurs from all over university in Indonesia. So we let them know that you are going to college is not looking for the job after graduation, but try to make a job before you graduate. So it is not easy to change that kind of, the way of thinking. So to shift the paradigms, the way of thinking of the young entrepreneurs, it is not that easy. How to teach the chicken to swim? It's not that easy though. But if the duck, when they hatch and directly swim. But if chicken, until we cut them, they cannot swim. But we have to do that. That's what we start from the beginning. Our friend from Malaysia, they have also the program that starting from the children's is better to make the entrepreneurs. But now we are going to the campus, at least after you graduate, do make a job for other person. Don't find a job. And then for the youth financial, from the government there is a budget that maximum 25 million every young entrepreneurs to start up capitals. But before that, there is a test and training for the young entrepreneurs. Sometimes they propose, let's say, 100 million rupiah, but actually they need only 10 million because they cannot calculate their proposals. So before that, there is some calculation, and then government give the grant, this grant, for the young entrepreneurs. So thank you for your attention. I don't think that you know that kind of program, but at least now we still have a big homework to do, because now our production population is high now. So young entrepreneurs is one of our program, hoping that this program can succeed to help us to increase our entrepreneurs rate in Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Yusek Maglaya, please.
Yes, I guess the very first thing is realization, and really believing and appreciating that entrepreneurship is really very important. But starting early, we agree, is very important. You start early in terms of really developing the entrepreneurial spirit of someone. And when you talk of poverty reduction or addressing poverty, you're really looking at how do we create jobs in the rural areas, in the countryside. And that's really where entrepreneurship comes in. We're not talking of being hired to work, but to really start businesses so you can hire people, you can employ people and really create the jobs you need. Financing is very important, and startups or financing for startups is also important, and maybe government can really look into that as well. Here in the Philippines, there are some programs that we know that some departments provide in terms of giving starter kits and startups to really get a potential entrepreneur to really start a business, and making the process easier for him to go through business permits and licenses at that early stage of being a micro entrepreneur. So all this, I think, the business environment, making it easy for them to start, getting them to be incentivized and to be encouraged to really start a business would really be key, as well as the educational system. K-12 is one. Our junior and senior high school now, where we're adding 2 years in our educational system, has included tech box studies and courses, and really entrepreneurship into as early as junior high or senior high school. So it's now not like you just start a business because you can't go to college, but it should be you start a business as an option, as really an alternative this time, and not just because you don't have the money to go to college.
Thank you, Secretary Maglayan. Before I ask Dr. Bollard to also provide his response, I'd like to also encourage other ministers and the heads of delegation to also let us know if you'd like to respond to any of those questions. So, anyone? If not, Dr. Bollard, please, you have the floor.
In the education, there's a number of education initiatives going on in other parts of APEC as well, also led by Philippines this year in our Human Resource Development Working Group. And also the business arm of APEC Business Advisory Council, again chaired by Philippines this year, has got a number of suggestions as well that we've been looking at. But it was the first time I ever heard of us covering chicken swimming before.
Yeah, interesting anecdote. Yes. Are you?
Another
You have a follow-up question. Is it related to the
yes,
question, or is this a new question?
It's
Something about
related to my first question.
Please.
I address this question once again to Ma'am Maglaya. Ma'am, are we looking at other than you mentioned the K-12, are we looking at partnering with the education sector in promoting entrepreneurship, other than like for example from the ones from let's say in the elementary level, if we can, is it possible that we can try to promote entrepreneurship among little children or pupils?
Oh, well, what I know is this is a subject that is included in high school, not in elementary, not yet. In high school, and so that it's as early as junior high school, when they're on their 7th grade, they are assessed as to what their inclinations are, as to whether they would be good in starting a business, what their interests are, what their skills are. Unlike before the K to 12, when we didn't have that, it was only maybe after college or maybe after one has graduated in high school, after it's the 10th year in education, then maybe they'll start thinking of, starting a business. But as early as 7th grade now, there's an assessment process going on. So I think that's already a big change in starting early in really identifying whether you would have some entrepreneurial skills or interests. So in college, I know that there are subjects already on enterprise development, though, and of course, business courses will always be there now. But, so educational system is a very important tool in honing the skill of an entrepreneur, and a lot of schools now have competitions going on innovations, on businesses, even starting a business, and even showing that it can operate a business using it not just in paper, but they're in fact given a chance to really try a business while still in school.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Undersecretary Maglay. I believe Our Excellency from New Zealand would also like to share their experience. Yes, Your Excellency.
Yeah, just a note to one of the earlier questions, the importance of trade and free trade to help empower small and micro businesses, to help them realize their potential, not only to access new customers, but perhaps also access new ideas, new innovation, and new capital to spread their ideas in a very, very competitive world. At the same time, the discussions we've had around e-commerce and internet, changing the power balance and empowering small businesses to be key parts of global supply chains and value chains, no matter what economy they're from, to play a crucial part in development of their own business, their own economy, their own region, and being innovative at all times, which new e-commerce platforms, internet, and free trade agreements allow and empower many of our small and micro businesses.
Great, thank you very much, Your Excellency. Okay, that was one last question, I think. But yes, we can entertain last two questions, please. I see one more, and then I see the lady at the back, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Leonard from PIA. Since we're pushing for e-commerce, especially for SMEs, did your discussions also consider concerns on cybersecurity, since we would be dealing with cross-border transactions? Or would this be part of...
I think we'd like to ask Dr. Baller to respond to that, please, in terms of what the APEC Secretary is also doing in that area.
So the ministerial meeting didn't need to discuss that today. That issue has come up under some other working groups in APEC, but not around this set of meetings. In Cebu a couple of weeks ago, the anti-corruption working group discussed some things like that, and the anti-terrorism working group also. So those discussions are underway, but nothing right at the minute for these meetings.
Okay, thank you. And then there was one lady here who raised her hand. You have the floor. Yes, madam.
Good evening. I'm Sweden Velado from People's Television. My question is addressed to the delegate from the United States. We understand that you've initiated various initiatives for global value change. Maybe you can share with us some of these initiatives. And then my second question is addressed to Yusek Maglaya. Ma'am, during the previous press conference, DTI Regional Director Rebecca shared with us that here in Region 6, they have the SME Roving Academy, yes. And I think it's also a very good initiative for the region. But do we have also any plans of expanding it to other regions, even if I understand that each region has their own style of helping out SMEs. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you for those questions. Would like to ask, please, Your Excellency from the United States to respond to the first question.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the question related to global value chain, which I'll interpret as global supply chain, which is an initiative the United States was pleased to support during this year. I'd like to actually specifically start again with my compliments to the Philippines on the hosting of APEC year, and my own personal participation in this working group has been an honor and a pleasure. In June of this year, the United States was proud to be the host of the 40th SME working group, which included a global supply chain event. The global supply chain event was intended to help SMEs understand the opportunities for entering into a global supply chain. Included 5 workshops of different aspects of strengthening an SME's ability to learn about the regulatory, financial, and opportunities that this global supply chain offers. We believe it was a success. We incorporated SMEs as speakers on panels to explain their own experiences, both the challenges and also the successes. And we believe that the SME Working Group will continue to work on expanding on those experiences. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Your Excellency. Undersecretary Maglaya, please.
Right. The SME Roving Academy is a national program. So this is implemented in all 16 regions of the country. This is, of course, this is the conduct of training programs depending on the need of each region, particularly when it comes to skill and resources available and the priority sectors that they have. So we have this in terms of making this all available, and of course, it really will depend on the leveling as well. No? Unlike before, when we had training programs and participants just come and go, this time with the SME Roving Academy, each of the participants is pre-screened so that we know exactly what kind of training program is supposed to be given to them, and they're tracked in terms of progress, and there's a leveling or a ladderized system of training program from startup all the way to preparing them for the export market. So it's happening nationwide.
Okay, thank you for that question. Anyone else would like to? Yes, we have one last question, please. Thank you.
As a follow-up to the early question, I would like to hear also the program of Singapore and Malaysia regarding the training for entrepreneurial spirit of the young people.
Thank you. Your Excellency from Malaysia, please.
Yes, for university students, it is compulsory for them to take at least one entrepreneurship course. And in 2015 budget speech, the Prime Minister mentioned that we want to develop an entrepreneurial nation. So we have SME master plan in place, and definitely a lot of programs that we have done, especially in calculating the spirit of entrepreneurship during school times. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Your Excellency from Singapore, please.
Well, thank you for the question. Well, actually, we realized the importance of entrepreneurship, and 15 years ago, we appointed a minister for entrepreneurship. And I happen to be the third minister in charge of that initiative between 2007 and 2011. So 15 years later, we are seeing the results. And in the certain concentration of Singapore, you can find high concentration of technical or tech startups or technopreneurs, as we call them, flourishing. What we did in the past 15 years was to address some of the questions raised previously, meaning that entrepreneurs, they have a problem accessing to cash financing. So we created angel financing, seed financing. We brought in the venture capitalists. We brought in level 1, level 2 financing. And then we also help them in terms of expertise, because some of them, they're really young, they have lots of idea and energy, but they need to be mentored. So we organize mentors who are experienced business people who care about the entrepreneurship scene and wanted to give advice. We also put together a larger infrastructure in terms of accelerators and incubators. So the universities have their own, and we also invited professional incubators and accelerators to be, to start operations in Singapore. So all this add together. And there was an earlier questions about teaching or seeding entrepreneurship ideas among young students. So actually we started a program to get entrepreneurs to talk to students, both elementary and high school. We also gave money to the Ministry of Education to certain schools when they organize competition for certain entrepreneurship ideas. So the school can get, I can't remember now, maybe $50,000 or something. And the school in turn can organize competition and fund the student to make certain projects realizable. And I attended some of these competition, and some of the ideas that students came up with were really quite promising. Of course, they don't have the foresight of commercial viability and so on, but nevertheless, it's a good start. So I think since young, they are able to see that besides working for people, they can apply their creativity and entrepreneurship in creating a business. So I can go on and probably talk a lot about entrepreneurship, but I think it's an undertaking that requires long-term effort, and it also helps a lot if you interact with the entrepreneurs themselves and help them to solve the problems along their ways. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes our session. Just a few words we'd like to also share with you. Copies of the APEC SME Ministerial Statement and the APEC Iloilo Initiative will also be distributed after this session. If there are additional questions, we would like to encourage you to send us an email. We at the Department of Trade and Industry, as the host agency of the SME Ministerial Meeting, would welcome those questions, and then we will just forward them to our resource speakers as may be necessary. So on that note, we would like to thank you very much, Excellencies and Honorable Chair of the SME Ministerial Meeting, our DTI Undersecretary Zenaida Maglaya, and the ministers for your active participation in our discussions this afternoon. And to you, our friends from the press, thank you very much for your time and your interest in complementing our efforts to foster the growth of MSMEs to achieve inclusive growth for the region. Thank you very much and good evening to all of you.